The marking of these important anniversaries is organized in cooperation with the World Academy of Arts and Sciences, its Global Peace Offensive Center, but also with the support of Independent Union of Research and Higher Education in Zagreb. The event is held under the high patronage of the President of the Republic of Croatia. Among us, there are several members of diplomatic missions in Zagreb, here in Croatia. So we are particularly pleased to have with us today the Ambassador of Japan, His Excellency Mr. Mitsuhiro Wada. Also, Ambassador of Ireland, Her Excellency Miss Wendy Dorman-Smith, and the Ambassador of the Netherlands, Her Excellency Miss Charlotte van Bank. Also, here are representatives of other embassies in Croatia, here in Zagreb. As the online presence, I would like to greet Ms. Karen Holberg, who is in Argentina, and who will deliver a speech later on during the conference. She is the Secretary General of International Pugwash Conferences on Science and World Affairs, so we cordially send our greetings to her. With us, thanks to internet stream, which is working, I hope so, is also Mr. Donato Kiniger Pasigli, Vice President of the World Academy of Arts and Sciences and the President of the recently established Global Peace Offensive Center. We send our greetings to him also. We will hear about the Global Peace Offensive Center too later. We would also like to greet our audience here in the hall, Andromeda in Zagreb, our online guest speakers, as well as the audience following us at the streaming of the official channel of the Independent Union of Research. Before we start our estimated speakers, I would like to invite Mr. Zvonimir Šikić, President of Pugwash Croatia and Fellow of the World Academy of Art and Science, to address us with a few welcoming words.
Thank you. So, good morning, distinguished guests, colleagues and friends. We gather here today not merely for a conference, but for a profound act of remembrance and reaffirmation. Of course, we stand here on the shoulders of giants and view the horizon of our shared future. We are celebrating and commemorating here, as Raika already said, so I will not repeat these anniversaries of Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombing, Russell Einstein Manifesto, and Nobel Peace Prize of Sir Roger Roblat and the Pugwash conferences. And of course, here in Croatia, as Raika already said, we are commemorating the 110th anniversary of the birth of academician Ivan Supek, who was the founder of Pugwash conference in Croatia, which is actually the oldest non-government organization in Croatia. So, to make it short, really, why we are here? We are here to transform memory into responsibility, because, as you know, the original Pugwash mission to confront the pillars of nuclear weapons and the misuse of science is not, unfortunately, a historical relic. It's more urgent than ever in our world, facing new technologies, threats, and old unresolved dangers, unfortunately. So today, in this spirit, we will explore this legacy, and our discussions will bridge, I hope, the profound wisdom of these anniversaries with the acute challenges of our present. So let me finish with the words that we have a duty articulated by Einstein, Russell, Rothbard, and Supek, to think in a new ways. Let us honor them, not just with the words, but with our earnest attention and our commitments to action. So thank you very much again for participating. And now I think, like I said, we will start with our conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Šikić. Now we will proceed with the introductory words of academician Ivo Schlaus. He is the honorary president of the World Academy of Art and Science, as well as honorary president of Pugwash Croatia, and former member of the International Council of Pugwash Conferences on Science and World Affairs. Academician Schlaus sent us a short video with important messages on the current state of play regarding global security and the role of science in addressing global security threats. Please, would you be so kind and show us this video? Molim vas, možete od gospodina Schlausa video.
Directors, ambassadors of Ireland, Japan, and the Netherlands. Dear Karen, our General Secretary of International Pugwash, dear Donato, Vice President of the World Academy, and Miss Alice, who now leads, who is the chair of the young Pugwashites. We have actually to take care of three influences that adversely affect the humankind. One is the nuclear bomb. The other is climate change. And the third is artificial intelligence. Now, nuclear bomb, though the number of bombs has gone down from about 90,000, it went down to about 15,000. Nevertheless, this is very serious because, as I said, there are 9 of them. And second, there is even a tendency now that some countries that believed in American nuclear umbrella now believe they will have their own bomb. So it is likely that in a couple of years we may have considerably more. One good thing about nuclear bombs is that unless we use it, we are okay. Unfortunately, there is today statements by both Russian president and American president that they will use the bomb. As you know, today we are faced with 3 interconnected wars, one in Africa, one in Asia, and one in Europe. It would be very nice to be able somehow to solve at least one of them, and this is what President Truman believed. However, it's not clear that we will soon enjoy freedom from nuclear weapons. With climate change, the situation is worse. Unless we do not change drastically and remain in business as usual, then we have at our disposal 2 to 3 decades. And after that, the climate condition will deteriorate very, very much, and we will destroy our Earth, the only habitat we have. But the worst situation is with artificial intelligence, which is a new thing, and we know very little about that. We are faced with these 3 problems, and in order to solve them adequately, we have to change our economic paradigm, our political paradigm, and we have to change ourselves. This is possible, but it's a very, very difficult task. We hope that the coming generation will solve that. In conclusion, Your Excellency, Ambassador Vada, since you are among the speakers, let me tell that I hope that you enjoy your stay in my country as much as I enjoyed my many visits to beautiful Japan, the one that I was a visiting professor at the Kyoto University and managed to extend the cherry blossom for a long time, giving lectures in Nagasaki all the way to Sapporo. Thank you very much.
We've heard the honorary president of Pugwash, Croatia, academician Ivo Schlaus, who mentioned three grave threats who are threatening today's mankind. Artificial intelligence, nuclear weapons, and climate change. I think we'll all, after this event, once again, dedicate our thoughts and efforts to grapple with these threats in a reasonable and peaceful way. After Mr. Schlaus, we are particularly pleased to invite His Excellency, Mr. Mitsuhiro Wada, Ambassador of Japan to Croatia, to address us with his speech. Your Excellency, the floor is yours.
Distinguished members of the Pugwash Conference, ladies and gentlemen, it is my great honor to address this conference as the Ambassador of Japan. The very first World Pugwash Conference took place in 1957 with the participation of Japanese scientists. The impetus for that gathering was the 1955 manifesto issued by 11 scientists, including the renowned Dr. Hideki Yukawa, the first Japanese Nobel laureate and one of the founders of Pugwash Japan. Over the years, the Pugwash International Conference was held in Hiroshima in 1995, the year the organization received the Nobel Peace Prize, and again in 2005, and in Nagasaki in 2015. As you know, this year it returns to Hiroshima, commemorating the 80th anniversary of the atomic bombings. First of all, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the government of Croatia for co-sponsoring the United Nations resolution entitled Steps to Build a Shared Plan for a World Without Nuclear Weapons, which Japan has been submitting to the General Assembly every year since 1994. I am pleased to inform you that the vote on this resolution took place earlier this week, and it has been successfully adopted. I also wish to express my deepest appreciation to the city of Beograd na More, a Vice President, City of Mayors for Peace, for organizing a memorial ceremony every year on August 6th for the victims of the atomic bombings, the day the atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima. Mayor Ivan Knez was awarded a Japanese decoration in 2018 for his contribution to these efforts. It is highly meaningful that a country such as Croatia is helping to keep alive the awareness of the devastating tragedy the nuclear weapon can bring about. In doing so, Croatia is already playing an important role in advancing the realization of a world without nuclear weapons. As the only country to have ever suffered atomic bombings during wartime, Japan bears a special responsibility to lead international efforts to achieve a world without nuclear weapons. Japan has been working tirelessly in various fora towards this goal. As mentioned earlier, since 1994, Japan has been submitting a resolution to the UN General Assembly every year. In order to present a realistic and practical direction for global action, former Prime Minister Kishida, himself a native of Hiroshima, announced Hiroshima Action Plan in 2022. The plan consists of 5 pillars, including ensuring non-use and transparency of nuclear weapons, sustaining progress on nuclear weapons reductions, promoting the peaceful uses of nuclear energy, and encouraging world leaders to visit Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Nuclear disarmament requires continuous efforts, beginning with the nuclear weapon states. This must be accompanied by confidence building among states and concrete actions through both bilateral and multilateral channels. For this reason, we are closely following discussions on arrangements to succeed the New START treaty between the United States and Russia, which is set to expire in February next year. It is equally important to address the underlying factors that drive nuclear armament and to create a security environment that will allow for a complete abolition of nuclear weapons. The Treaty of the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons, NPT, which entered into force in March 1970, remains the cornerstone of the international nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation regime. The NPT designates the US, Russia, UK, France, and China as nuclear weapon states. While aiming to prevent the spread of nuclear weapons to non-nuclear weapon states, it also calls for negotiations on nuclear disarmament among the nuclear weapon states and promote cooperation in the peaceful uses of nuclear energy. Japan attaches great importance to maintaining and strengthening the NPT regime and highly values its indispensable contribution to the international peace and security. There are two wheels that must turn together if we are to advance toward a world without nuclear weapons. The first is the effort to address and minimize the threat posed by existing nuclear arsenals. The second is the promotion of the philosophy of a world without nuclear weapons, sharing throughout the international community a global norm recognizing the inhumanity of nuclear weapons and building an international order in which such weapons have no place. The events organized by the Croatian Pugwash Conference are a clear example of this second wheel in motion. I firmly believe that only when both of these wheels move forward together can we achieve a secure and sustainable world free of nuclear weapons. You may recall that the Japanese Organization of Atomic Bomb Survivors, Nippon Hidankyo, was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize last year in recognition of its tireless efforts to rid the world of nuclear weapons and to ensure that survivors' testimonies continue to warn humanity that nuclear weapons must never be used again. Sadly, due to the deteriorating global security environment, we are witnessing an increased risk of nuclear use today. Yet, at the same time, voices opposing nuclear weapons are stronger than ever. In this context, I greatly appreciate today's conference and sincerely hope that more people in Croatia will join us in promoting the noble cause of nuclear disarmament. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wada, for your wise words and the messages for emphasizing the importance of UN resolution initiated by Japan against nuclear weapon. Also for stressing the importance of witnesses who lived through horrible experience after nuclear bombings of two Japanese towns, who are in our memory, and I hope the younger generations will also preserve the memory of these events. I'm sure that you will tell also the other students in your gymnasium about Mr. Wada's contribution to this event. And now the three young students from Gymnasium Ivan Supek, Clara, Jelena, and Ines, are going to read the contribution of Mr. Ivan Supek Jr., who was not able to participate today to be with us. So they took the duty of presenting his words to this audience.
In the second half of the 20th century, Ivan Supek was the most prominent promoter of Enlightenment humanism imbued with social justice and peacemaking, writing numerous books, articles, and philosophical treatises. He paid tribute to the Croatian great humanists Janus Pannonius and Dominis by dedicating plays, novels, and scientific treatises to them. Supek also often wrote about undoubtedly greatest and most far-sighted Croatian scientist Ruđer Bošković. For Supek, humanism implicitly includes tolerance and social justice, the two best cures against frictions, conflicts, and wars. He also assumes that every person is endowed with a spectrum of human possibilities, and that this potential can certainly be directed in the right way through education and enlightenment. Consecutively, in the 1960s, Supek began to thoughtfully, systematically, and painstakingly build a broader institutional framework for such an action that would include as many participants as possible. In the dialogue, and through the dialogue, contribute to understanding, tolerance, and strengthening the best in them. First, in 1961, he founded the Department of History, Philosophy, and Sociology of Science, on which he was the head until 1982, and which was primarily focused on educating students of natural sciences in the spirit of humanism and scientific universalism. At that time, he became more active in the global organization against nuclear weapons, the Pugwash Conferences of Science and World Affairs, or abbreviated as the Pugwash Movement. And in 1962, he was elected a member of the committee of the World Pugwash Conference. In 1963, he founded the Yugoslav branch of the Pugwash Conference, in which he was the president until 1985. Then, in 1965, he founded the Institute of Philosophy of Science and Peace of the Yugoslav Academy of Sciences and Arts, which he led until 1992, and which became the headquarters of the Pugwash Movement and the international organization World Without Bombs, of which he was also president. In 1966, the Institute began publishing the journal Encyclopedia Moderna, of which Supek is the editor-in-chief. In this way, in a relatively short 5-year period, he created a widely interwoven network of various institutions, organizations, and magazines for his humanitarian and peacemaking activities, to which he then added the Inter-University Center in Dubrovnik in 1972. The United Nations Declaration on General Disarmament was adopted after painstaking negotiations in 1952, but it was at that time that the USA and the USSR launched a relentless nuclear arms race. So it is not surprising that the great powers had no serious intention of implementing this disarmament. In order to encourage politicians and speed up the decision-making process related to the nuclear disarmament, Albert Einstein and Bertrand Russell wrote their famous manifesto in 1955, in which they stated that it was unreasonable to believe that there would be no wars and that the warring parties would adhere to their peacetime promises not to use nuclear weapons. So the only reasonable way for everyone to agree on general disarmament in peacetime, and that therefore every agreement between East and West is achieving this goal, should be supported. The manifesto was a direct impetus for convening the Appraisal Dangerous from Atomic Weapons Conference in the summer of 1957 in the Canadian town of Pugwash, and hence later the name of the movement, Pugwash Conferences on Science and World Affairs. Einstein died in the meantime, and even Bertrand Russell could not attend the conference, but 22 top scientists from both sides of the Iron Curtain were present. The main engine of the Pugwash movement was the Polish physicist Joseph Rotblat, who participated in the Manhattan Project. But in 1944, when he realized that Germany was not developing an atomic bomb, he became an unwavering opponent of the further development of nuclear weapons, and especially their possible use. In 1961, the US began deploying nuclear missiles in Italy and Turkey, and the USSR soon responded by deploying its own nuclear missiles in Cuba. In this general aggravation of the world military political situation, the UN finally managed to establish the Committee of 18 States for Disarmament in December of that year, because the USA and the USSR could no longer openly obstruct it. The Pugwash movement significantly accelerates its activities in the shadow of the increasing Cuban crisis, and as early as 1962, two conferences were held in England, just 1 month apart. The first was the 9th Pugwash Conference held in August in Cambridge. A COSWA standing committee was established, chaired by the British physicist and the Nobel laureate Cecil Powell. The committee consisted of 3 representatives, each from the USA, USSR, and Great Britain, and even Supek was the 10th member. At the meeting in Cambridge, there were only about 50 distinguished participants, and that working meeting was successfully led by the convinced peacemaker and winner of the Nobel Peace Prize, Philip Noel Baker. Supek, together with the future Nobel Prize-winning Pakistani physicist Abdus Salam, presented a paper on the possible proliferation of plutonium from nuclear reactors. During the meeting, he worked closely with Noel Baker, with whom he remained a lifelong friend. The unanimous conclusion was that general and complete nuclear disarmament was both possible and in the interest of all humanity, and that this goal was feasible within 4 years. This document then served as the basis for the further work of the Committee of 18 States on Disarmament, which operated in Geneva from 1962 to 1968. However, the work of the committee continued to be obstructed by the major nuclear powers, and the process of nuclear disarmament through the mediation of the United Nations, unfortunately, increasingly died out.
In September 1962, the 10th Pugwash Conference was held in London with a completely different character and purpose than the previous, smaller, working various topics, conferences dedicated to one topic. It was a large and formal gathering where various topics were discussed in an effort to define better all the goals of the movement and to include as many participants as possible so they could more strongly influence the political decision-making in their countries regarding nuclear disarmament. The Pugwash Conference in London fulfilled its assigned function and enabled a large number of individuals to take formal responsibility for the future of the Pugwash movement. It was also realized that such large conferences were somewhat ineffective when it came to a more substantive agreement on a specific topic or task. It was decided that large gatherings that would direct the activities of the entire Pugwash movement would be held only every 5 years. The beginning of the conference was marked by a special and inspiring appearance of Bertrand Russell, whose witty but also thoughtful speech was rewarded with thunderous applause from all present. The next year, in 1963, Supek organized the 11th Pugwash Conference in Dubrovnik with the financial help of the Yugoslav government, which implicitly meant that the official government supported the activities of the Pugwash movement and opposed nuclear armament. The conference was held again in the usual smaller working format, with the topic Current Problems of Disarmament and World Security. Nuclear disarmament and ways and tactics of encouraging politicians to take a more active approach to the problem were discussed. Among the participants were as many as 7 Nobel laureates: Patrick Maynard Stuart Blackett, John Cockcroft, Neville Francis Mott, Cecil Frank Powell, Philip Noel Baker, Donald Arthur Glasser, and Isidore Isaac Rabi, which shows that the physicists most responsible for the development of nuclear weapons were extremely active in the movement for universal nuclear disarmament and in questioning the role of ethics in scientific research. Messages to the gathering were sent by John F. Kennedy, Nikita Khrushchev, Alexander Rankovich, and many others, and all of them, except for Rankovich, expressed concern about the dangers posed by nuclear weapons and expressed the desire for their removal. But in the end, all these efforts proved futile in terms of complete nuclear disarmament, and politicians' promises, as always, empty. There were successes, albeit limited, but still significant. Let's mention that the Pugwash movement was very much responsible for the adoption of the following treaties. The first and very important is the Partial Test Ban Treaty from 1963, then the Non-Proliferation Treaty, 1968, the Anti-Ballistic Missile Treaty, 1972, the Biological Weapons Convention, 1972, and the Chemical Weapons Convention, 1993, serving as the only quiet channel of communication between the USA and the USSR. For these merits, Joseph Rothblatt and the Pugwash Conference were jointly awarded for the Nobel Peace Prize in 1995. The work of the Yugoslav Pugwash movement can be characterized as successful, since the development of the atomic bomb in Yugoslavia was successfully halted. Ivan Supek undoubtedly deserves highest praise for that achievement, with his tireless effort in writing, with which he informed and warned Yugoslav public regarding dangers of developing nuclear weapons. After the split with Josef Vissarionovich Stalin and the establishment of the non-aligned movement in 1961 in Belgrade, this became official Yugoslav policy. Ivan Supek continued to be very active within the Pugwash movement in the 1960s, participating in conferences in Udaipur, India, and Karlovy Vary, Czechoslovakia. In 1964, and in the following years in Venice, Addis Ababa, and others. The function of rector of Zagreb University and the establishment of the Inter-University Center in Dubrovnik in the following decade took up a lot of his time and energy, which also influenced the reduction of his participation in the Pugwash movement. But the main reason was his disappointment during the Pugwash conference in Nice in 1968, immediately after the collapse of the Prague Spring. His speech, in which he appealed to the members behind the Iron Curtain to finally speak the truth about military suppression of Prague Spring and allow Czechoslovakia to determine its own path, was not accepted by all participants. He realized that the Pugwash movement was permeated with minor scientists and politicians who were merely ventriloquists for their rulers, and that the great times of the Pugwash movement from the era of Einstein and Russell had irrevocably passed. He became more actively involved in the Pugwash movement again after the Yugoslav army aggression against Croatia in the early 1990s, when he used the Pugwash movement to inform and mobilize the world public to help Croatia and condemn the brutal aggression.
I want to thank you, students of the Science Gymnasium here in Zagreb, Ines, Jelena, and Clara, who read the contribution of Ivan Supek's son, also called Ivan Supek, who reminded us about the successful efforts of Mr. Ivan Supek on halting the nuclear armament in this part of the world, but also about his contribution to international Pugwash movement. After hearing student reading the contribution of Mr. Ivan Supek, I would like to invite Mr. Boris Kožnjak from the Institute of Philosophy in Zagreb to share with us his thoughts and findings about the topic of Ivan Supek's 1944 Anti-Nuclear Manifesto. Mr. Kožnjak, please take the floor.
Thank you. Can I have slides, please? Okay, thank you. Dear friends, today I would like to share with you what I see as an important, yet perhaps still too little known, chapter in the history of the peace movements. And for those in Croatia who may already be familiar with it, let this serve as a reminder that we can be proud to have had a man of such stature as Professor Ivan Supek, a physicist, philosopher, humanist, as well as we heard, one of the prominent members of the Pugwash movement from its earliest days. My task is greatly eased by the previous presentation, which introduced us to his important, passionate, and lifelong involvement in the movement. At this point, I will thus only show a few photographs that illustrate his significance, here with Werner Heisenberg and Niels Bohr, whom he invited to Zagreb and Dubrovnik in 1960s and 1970s. But let me also add that no tribute to him is too much, since due to his uncompromising humanism, and despite all his great achievements, he has never received the recognition he deserves from any regime in this politically turbulent region. So let me take back in time to July 1944. Across Europe, World War II was reaching a turning point. The Allies had landed in Normandy, the Eastern Front was pushing westward, and resistance movements across the continent were gaining strength. Croatia was still under the Axis-aligned independent state of Croatia, while the partisan movement had liberated parts of the territory and was establishing its own cultural and political institutions. One such place was the small town of Topusko, about 60 kilometers from Zagreb. There, on June 25th, 1944, the first Congress of Cultural Workers of Croatia began. Over 3 days, papers were presented on literature, theater, music, visual arts, science, and architecture. The program also included performances and exhibitions. Among the more than 200 participants was Ivan Supek. After earning his doctorate in 1940 under Werner Heisenberg in Leipzig, he worked as Heisenberg's assistant on quantum field theory for a while. In 1941, he was arrested by the Gestapo, but was released thanks to Heisenberg's intervention. He returned to Croatia and by 1943 became active in the educational department of the State Anti-Fascist Council for the National Liberation of Croatia. On the third day of the Congress, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Supek presented his paper, Science and Society. Because of the danger of an air raid, he delivered the presentation in the forest outside the town. He's walking on the photo on the right, he's walking with our Croatian composer Ivo Tijardović, and on the left, he's lecturing in the forest. The original paper survives as a typewritten manuscript. In January 1945, Supek published a shorter version in Priroda, Nature, the journal of the newly re-established Croatian Society of Natural History, one of the oldest journals of its kind in the world, founded but discontinued during the period 1941-1945. In this paper, Supek put forward 3 main theses. First, he argued that economic and social progress must be grounded in science and education. Second, he examined the relationship between science and politics and ideology in general. He criticized totalitarian regimes for misusing science, while he emphasized the example of the Third Reich, where freedom and of thought was suppressed and the theory of relativity was under attack and genetics was distorted to fit racial ideology, he clearly had the Soviet Union in mind as well, where science also suffered heavy ideological pressure. Because of this, he would soon be labeled as counter-revolutionary and fall into disfavor of the Communist Party, becoming a heretic on the left, as he is known in Croatia. His third thesis was devoted to the need for global disarmament and a call for peace. After briefly outlining the development of quantum and nuclear physics, Supek concluded with these words: "Magnificent prospects of progress are opening up before science. Modern experimental physics has discovered that in atomic nuclei there occur processes that release incomparably greater energy than thermal, chemical, or electrical processes. By applying these energies, humanity will gain immense technical power. These forces may be used for the greater happiness and prosperity. But in a society torn apart by war, they may lead to the total destruction of humanity. There is only one way out of this danger, and this is the creation of a fraternal and free community of all nations." And this was, let us remember, a full year before the first atomic bomb was detonated in Alamogordo, New Mexico. After witnessing the devastation of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Supek became a passionate opponent of nuclear arms, as we heard, an active participant in the movement for nuclear disarmament, and a consistent advocate against all ideological, political, and military abuses of science. And the rest is history. Thank you very much.
Mr. Kozniak, thank you for your speech, which reminded us of Ivan Supek's early efforts to find the way which would balance the threats from politics and ideological use of scientific research and findings. So you mentioned that Supek already in 1944 anticipated, we might say, the Einstein-Russell Manifesto. After this contribution to remembrance of a member of Pugwash international movement, Mr. Ivan Supek, and founder of Pugwash Croatia, we will hear a speech from Mr. Mario Matijević, Vice President of the Croatian Nuclear Society. He will speak about a very interesting and timely topic of nuclear energy today, whether it is a threat or beneficial technology which can offer resolutions for many problems of today's mankind. Mr. Matijević, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Okay, hello everybody. Thank you for introduction. So in this short presentation, let's see what's nuclear energy. Is it threat or is it salvation? I'm going to give a short introduction about Croatian Nuclear Society and some common goals we have with the Croatian Pugwash Society. And we're going to see some sorted nuclear facts based on scientific literature. And we can draw some conclusions. First of all, the Croatian Nuclear Society was founded almost 30 years ago by Professor Vladimir Knap on the Faculty of Electrical Engineering and Computing, and he was a key person. He was initiator of the movement of the Society Foundation, and he was also president for many years, and simultaneously he was a president of the Croatian Pugwash Society. After the foundation of the society, it was accepted by many scientists and experts in nuclear-related fields, and by many utilities and companies in Croatia. Short history sketch, as you can see, the former president of the Yugoslavia is putting a cornerstone. That was in the mid-70s. And Krško started its work about 1983, when I was born. And during that period, it continuously gives stable electricity with a constant uprate in terawatt hours over the years. And this uprate was due to expertise and knowledge which is needed for periodical technical improvements during many years. And it's important to say that it is a generation 2 PWR reactor from Westinghouse, and during that time it costed $1 billion, and it took 7 years to construct it, just to put things in perspective today. Croatian Nuclear Society is an association that brings together many experts and everything that is, so to say, relevant for the peaceful application of nuclear energy. And this is one common goal to Pugwash society. We also are engaged in advancement of various nuclear applied knowledge and procedures, and how to implement it safely in technology, in Krško power plant. And of course, we are engaged in proposals for the nuclear laws, many regulations, nuclear energy strategies, and so on. We also have a long-lasting international conference series, which are held in Zadar every 2 years. Popular science forums and various publishing activities. So you can see a small insert from the webpage of the Croatian Nuclear Society, and on this link you can find many useful things you're interested in. So more about the common goals to Pugwash society. Of course, the peaceful application of nuclear energy, I would say, is the fundamental. It's a cornerstone, but also everything behind that as a scientific work, education, knowledge transfer, and so on. Of course, we also have prominent members of the society which are acting closely in many state committees, ministries. As I said, they are engaged in many nuclear topics, development programs, and so on. So during this energy crisis and the climate crisis, the Europe has also realized that nuclear energy is very important in the future energy mix. And we finally see some new improvements related to Croatian energy strategy. And as you probably heard, two options are available. One is, again, when the history repeats, as being a partnership with the Slovenians to build another second Krško block. This is a conceptual picture. Or maybe to stand alone, bring a new type of technology, small modular reactor, or SMR. So that's something that we hopefully going to see in the near future. So what can we say about advantages of the nuclear energy as an option? Of course, it is the only technologically mature and available technology now available, okay? And it is only one that's effective in resolving climate change and bringing down the greenhouse gas emissions, okay? So it's good for everybody, for people, for the climate, but present nuclear share of only 9% in the global electricity production is too low, definitely too low. And we need many more new reactors worldwide. And that brings us to the possible problems, which can be following. What type of nuclear cycle are we gonna use permanent disposal of the spent fuel, or is it gonna be reprocessed to build a MOX fuel, mixed oxide of plutonium or uranium? Will it increase fears of nuclear proliferation maybe? And we see that this manifesto is still very here, present. So the same fears are still present. So if we take a look at the scientific literature and some published papers from my colleagues and myself, we can make some kind of a short summary and see that we have definitely catastrophic climate changes year by year. So we have global warming, it's here. And we definitely need some urgent, systematic, worldwide measures. How can we address that? Only by new power plants and new generation type 3 reactors or 3+, which are here, which are developed, which are mature. And this is the only way to cover the base load, together with, of course, mix of renewables and other types of sources. But for the base load, only the nuclear fission energy is viable. Of course, dangerous climate trends, you can see many United Nations reports, and you are aware of things and negative trends that's happening all around the world, of course. So CO2 emissions should be definitely diminished and mitigated over the next critical several decades. And because of that, we need much stronger nuclear safety measures on a political scale. And this is the needed option to replace many of the coal power plants. So we need many, many more reactors worldwide. You can also here talk about nuclear fusion. Nuclear fusion is not here, it's not developed. It's not likely to be developed in the next critical decades. Same thing as can be said about carbon capture and storage technology. So for these two types of technologies, we have uncertain, at least uncertain technical future. After installing, hopefully, more nuclear share on the global scale for the electricity production, we can hopefully see that after, let's say, 2060s, we can expect new types of reactors that would be thorium reactors or fast breeder reactors. But again, fast breeders are demanding strict proliferation controls. So this is a short evolution scale of the reactors. And as I said, Krško power plant belongs in this generation 2. We are somewhere here in the 3+ region. And generation 4 is something that's going to be seen a few decades in the future. If you're going to ever see ITER fusion power plants break even, we're going to have to wait for another, I would say, 10 years. And that's something completely different from the fusion power plant, which has to work continuously, not in pulsed mode, but that's something that hopefully we're going to see, but that's going to be in the fast in the future. So conclusions are here in these two pictures, which are reminding us that every year we have these situations with fires, floods, hurricanes, and it's become pretty accustomed to see every year these things on television. So we have to make urgent steps, and climate problems do resist from year to year. So again, fission nuclear technology is only one available now that can mitigate these negative trends. And of course, it can be done only by increasing the share of NPPs, but drawing parallelly the problem of non-proliferation. So we can say that it's challenging, very challenging political and economical task for the entire world. And what about this nuclear energy? So is it a threat or is it salvation? It's both. We can say that it can be both. It can be salvation if you're going to use it wisely, where the interest of the humanity comes in the first plan, but only if we use these nuclear power plants on much bigger scale. On the other hand, if it's going to be used foolishly to make political deterrent, then we are faced with nuclear weapons that still persist. And as long as we have nuclear weapons, we have danger for the planet and for the humanity. So to conclude this brief presentation, I would like to end with this. It looks bright and sunny, but it's actually a very dark picture, because if you can see the text below it, we are breaking the record in increasing planet's temperature from year to year. So really, we have to do something very, very fast, because time window is shrinking very fast. Thank you for attention. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Matijevich, for presenting us with serious warnings about current state of global warming and the possibilities of nuclear energy in solving at least partially this grave problem. Before proceeding, I would like to check whether there are perhaps some questions about our former guest speakers. We've heard first Mr. Zvonimir Šikić, who gave us only a few introductory remarks, but he is the current president of the Pugwash Croatia. So if you have any questions for him, please go ahead. Then we've heard Mr. Ivo Šlaus, honorary president of Pugwash Croatia. We've heard two contributions about Ivan Supek, our esteemed scientist and fighter for a better world, we can say. And also we've heard His Excellency Ambassador of Japan in Croatia, Mitsuhiro Wada, who was talking about Japan's terrible experience with nuclear weapons and the task of remembering its victims, not only today, but also in the future generations. So please, if anybody here or from the online community which is also following this event, if you have any questions, please go ahead. Okay, we'll have the other opportunity at the end of the whole event, today's event. So we'll continue with our speakers. Now we'll hear something about the Global Peace Offensive Center, which was established this year, only 3 months before today in Maribor, Slovenia. And with us will be the leader of this Global Peace Offensive, Mr. Donato Kineger Pasigli, who is Vice President of the World Academy of Art and Science and also President of the Global Peace Offensive Center, which was formed 2.5 months before. So it's something very new in this movement, and we'll hear from him how it is conceived and what its mission is. So please, our technicians are going to call him on the stream. His home time.
Thank you. Thanks to Pugwash, Croatia, for inviting me to this very important event, a commemoration of the manifesto of Russell Einstein that is extremely current for its meaning, for what it represents for humanity. We heard a previous speaker saying that we need uncompromising humanities, and I can subscribe to that. By the way, he incidentally mentioned the small town of Topusko near Croatia for a very important event leading to peace. But, you know, history goes in circles. And unfortunately, Topusko was also a place that witnessed a lot of destruction during the war in the 90s. And I happened to be there those days. So I have memories of a place that I'm sure has been rebuilt and that now means peace. But again, we have to be present to also our past, know what happened at all moments. So the Russell Einstein manifesto that I said was extremely well crafted is also a precursor of all campaigns in nuclear non-proliferation, and I would say also peace building in general. Also the Human Security for All campaign that the World Academy of Art and Science, that with Professor Slaus I represent today, rolled out a campaign on human security with the United Nations, and all is in line with that thinking and the interpretation of the role of science, that after all is knowledge, and art. Art is experience, is the product of our own knowledge that combined should work out to avoid the Armageddon, to avoid annihilation, to avoid the obliteration of humanity. So the manifesto is a very powerful memento, and the closing of the manifesto is incomparable. And this is probably the reason why has not been imitated, has not been replicated, rehashed, because it would be impossible to do so. That closing tells us in this essential formula that we should remember our humanity, and with a pause, forget about the rest. They, the authors of this manifesto, knew the dangers of grappling with the rest, as one cannot be oblivious of his own human nature. But the rest is what distracts us and brings us to distraction. And is still that heavy burden that we are carrying with us that is made of those strings attached, of the accumulation of interests, very often vested interests, public and private, that slow down and divert resources and make impossible the achievement of peace. So this, I think, is the essence of the manifesto that needs to be reiterated, this key formula of the warning to humanity. Now, the present state of affairs is, as you know, is extremely frail. International security system is frozen with imminent existential threats for all. Nuclear deterrence is not a reassuring umbrella for anybody, is not a shield. And the growing risks of the tactical, limited use of nuclear weapons in a war are, as you know, are being voiced in many places. Not latest in Russian Ukrainian war, but the same threat is imminent in the East and South Asia, in the Middle East, and many other regions. So deterrence is, in a nuclear age, simply means that we are interdependent, that there is no guarantee against first use. Someone said that nuclear deterrence is so unstable that it is like a big man in a canoe who is trying to avoid capsizing. I think this really gives you a sense of the risk that we are facing nowadays. Weapons are not the solution. In all hotspots nowadays, military escalation and military means do not help finding solutions. So peace is hard to be achieved, and it is bewildering in many ways how nowadays the deal-making practice of today ignores the fact that you cannot conceive peace, you cannot even conceive a negotiated settlement if you continuing bombing, if you continuing bringing death and destruction. That's why we need a long-term perspective and also immediate action. And it's the reason why, as World Academy, together with the European Academy of Science and Arts, over a year ago, we launched the Global Peace Offensive. The Global Peace Offensive that has attracted many organizations already under the fold, that is an approach spearheading the activities of the civil society in general, of the academic community, through citizens diplomacy and peace building initiatives. And this should support peace everywhere, worldwide, peace efforts. The problem nowadays is the heightened tensions, the polarization, the level of violence, and the need also for social movements, groups and individuals to have a sense of direction, to acquire a sense of direction in supporting peace efforts always, and avoiding becoming victims of propaganda at all stages, victim of extremism, of fundamentalism that certainly doesn't help in achieving peace anywhere. So the global peace offensive that is based on a theoretical framework that is called the gradual reduction in tension, GRIT, that was developed in the 60s, now has been re-geared in a way that is directed to problem solving. Is relationship oriented, because as you know, peace can be attained only if we work from within the issues, if we have a better understanding of what are the causes of conflict, but if we don't stop there. It's not just understanding the causes of conflict, it's also trying to investigate ways to solve those issues. And that can happen in most cases with a bottom-up approach, with people being involved. But this needs a stimulus, needs an impetus, and the Global Peace Offensive is trying to achieve that. We are really at the beginning in many ways. As the presenter was saying, we have now an office. We have a center that is based in Maribor, but the initiative is global. So let's not be misled. We need a place, and I think that to be in the region, it's very helpful but where we can also conduct research, we can do very precise activities. We can bring people together from different standpoints with or ideological differences as well, but that are ready to meet not with an ideological let's say mindset, but with a way of thinking that can be conducive to peace. So this is the kind of approach that we are following. As I said, localized interventions, also iterative processes of dialogue facilitation. This is what we are trying to achieve, and partnerships development. You see, the Let's Mind campaign that in a way we can say is a sort of example for us, started with a group of few organizations, that had a mindset. They said, we want to obliterate a kind of weapons that are impairing the life of people. So they succeeded at a certain point, but it took them 7, 8, 10 years to achieve that. Peace processes are the same. We cannot expect peace processes to be solved with a signature under a document. We need education. We need the critical use of the academic thinking to foster this peaceful thinking in the minds of people. We need people to think together about solutions. Therefore, science has a lot to do with that, because science brings knowledge, brings technology as well. I mean, so that is the way we are now gearing up in many contexts. The present focus of international politics is on the show. And that is not enough. The deal-making culture, but peace is never linear. It's not in a sequence. We need really to cultivate the desire of peace from the people when they are not, as I said, victims of propaganda. We cannot have a Manichaean approach. There is no duality of what is good and what is bad. In all violent conflicts in which I've been a witness, many conflict situations, I can tell you that never happened that one party was 100% right and the other party was 100% wrong. So we need really to confront ideas and find solutions to the violent climate of today, the acritical extremism and fundamentalism that really are the dangers of the society today. We cannot have these dogmatic responses. We need to have a sense also of appreciation. That's why we use a technology, an approach that we call the appreciative inquiry, that is based on localized action, again, on facilitated dialogue iterations, on these partnerships that bring about the essence of collective human security. The academic and research community must show the way forward through political, economic, local, national, international actors for a better understanding of those opposing forces, their stance and potential breakthroughs. So the breakthroughs are where we have to work, are really the main point of concern, of attention, where we can see that things can tilt one way or another. We are using this grit, these principles of global reduction intention, that it also means passion, it means commitment. As Osgood, that was the original theorist in the 60s of this approach, explained to all of us. So we can and we have to go beyond the limits, our own limits, that now unfortunately we are confronted with this imminent risk of wars that we need to sort out. So the peace offensive methods that looks at the what, at the where, at the how of the conflicts, analyzes tensions, and tries to find solutions. I'm really hopeful that this new approach, this theoretical framework, can also help us at a time when algorithms, when only platforms and mathematical formulas are trying to govern our thinking. Artificial intelligence, it can be helpful, but we cannot be governed by artificial intelligence. And we have to find ways where people come together and understand respective needs and aspirations. The Global Peace Offensive is a reminder of that. I am very encouraged by the response we are having. This afternoon, we will have a conference that is closed doors, is dedicated to the situation in Crimea, one of the regions under the scrutiny of the international community nowadays. We are trying to understand better those situations and bring actors together to talk again, to distill information that can be also helpful in the wider spectrum of the negotiations that states are, of course, carrying out. But people are fundamental. I mean, peace again is nurtured from within, is nurtured from the sentiments of people, the relationship, and this is where we're working on. So humanities first, as the interlocutors that we're having today are saying, and I believe that together we can change realities. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kiniger-Pasili. We've heard Mr. Donato Kiniger-Pasili, who is Vice President of the World Academy of Art and Science and President of the Global Peace Offensive Center, new initiative, which he explained in the last minutes. So he mentioned many problems that the global community is facing today. Not least the proliferation of nuclear threats in all corners of the world, unfortunately. So he was stressing the need to push harder in our peace efforts to bring to ordinary citizens also the awareness of these problems and the hope that also ordinary citizens, ordinary people who are witnessing all these developments can do also something from their side. So after Mr. Donato Kiniger-Pasili, I would also like to use this opportunity to invite all of you to join in the peace activities of your countries and associations to make a strong and vivid community of peace forces in the world. After this, we'll now hear something from our esteemed guest, Mr. Božo Kovačević, who is a former ambassador and former Minister of Environment of the Republic of Croatia, also the researcher, writer, and professor. He will share with us his thoughts about how to avoid the world war.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I'm really honored to have opportunity to share my opinions with you. My question is how to avoid a world war, and my direct answer is directed to European leaders, and it is, dear European leaders, if you want to avoid war, you will stop to try to persuade United States to be directly involved in Ukrainian conflict. If America is militarily involved in Ukrainian conflict, we will be a step closer to the World War III,
to a nuclear war. And it would be the end of European civilization as we know, and maybe world civilization. So if you listen and understand Russell-Einstein Manifesto, you will stop to try to persuade Americans to be directly involved in that war. There is no rationally acceptable justification for Russian aggression against Ukraine. But it does not mean that we must not try to explain how that situation was created, that Russian leadership decided that initiating the war is the only solution for their problems. Of course, I don't intend to give a comprehensive explanation and answer, but let's start with a very simple question. How it was possible that deterrence functioned in Cold War times and deterrence doesn't function today? In Cold War times, NATO was much smaller than it's today. And the opposite side, Soviet Union, was accompanied by Warsaw Pact states. So NATO was weaker, Soviet bloc was much stronger than present Russian Federation is. And in that time, deterrence was functioning, and today it's not functioning. Russia organized aggression against one European state. My answer is very simple. In Cold War times, there was intensive diplomatic activity between United States and the Soviet Union. Ideological confrontation in that time was much stronger and much deeper than current confrontation between America and Russia. And if we are talking only about presidents, that it seems to me that there is no real ideological confrontation and noticeable ideological differences between President Trump and President Putin. But it doesn't mean that they cannot cause nuclear war. So it's paradox. In Cold War times, when NATO was weaker and Soviet bloc was stronger than present Russian Federation, deterrence was functioning. And today it's not, because Western world decided in certain moment, it seems to me it was 1999, that there is no need to develop intensive diplomacy with Russia. And the Western world started to create, to construct European security architecture without consulting Russia, without bearing in mind their warnings, their proposals, and their fears regarding their national security. So it seems to me that lack of adequate diplomacy is part of explanation. Adequate diplomacy from Western side toward Russia. Diplomacy is a mean for achieving goals which would otherwise be achieved by war. So why did Western world decided not to use that highly functional mean? I have no answer, but our leaders have to answer us, and in my opinion, have to try to change their approach to that conflict, and they have to try instead of criticizing Trump's proposals for peace agreements, they have to try to create their own, and maybe we will achieve something which could be accepted and implemented. And of course, nobody would be satisfied with unjust peace. But what does it mean, just peace? In my opinion, it means that peace agreement should be in line with United Nations Charter provisions. But how it could be achieved? Only by consensus of all 5 permanent UN Security Council members, which means that we have to use much more serious diplomacy to try to achieve that consensus. So, dear European leaders, don't try to persuade America to be directly involved in that conflict, but engage your huge diplomatic traditions and skills to try to achieve diplomatic solutions. Thank you.
We thank Mr. Božo Kovačević, former ambassador and the Minister of Environment of Republic of Croatia, but also former professor at the Diplomatic Academy, writer of many thoughtful texts from philosophy, ranging from philosophy to current observations of global political situations. Now, we are particularly honored to have with us Ms. Karen Holberg, Secretary General of Pugwash Conferences on Science and World Affairs. She is going to deliver a speech on behalf of International Pugwash and present us the results of the 63rd Pugwash Conference held in Hiroshima this year at the beginning of November. The conference title was 80 Years After the Atomic Bombing, Time for Peace, Dialogue and Nuclear Disarmament. So we are hearing Ms. Holberg from Argentina. Please take the floor.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Good morning from Argentina. I'm in the south of Argentina in Bariloche, Patagonia. This is where I work. I'm a physicist. I also work at the Bariloche Atomic Center, but since the beginning of this year, I have the honor and the privilege of being the Secretary General, having been elected of the Pugwash Conferences on Science and World Affairs. I want to say hello to my friends, to dear Ivo Schlaus, to Anna Jerkovic, and all our friends and colleagues in Croatian Pugwash. So thank you so much for having invited me to greet you here and to reflect on these very important issues. This is very important. From Pugwash, we really want to stimulate our activities with national groups and also with a young version of Pugwash. So I also say hello to the young Pugwashites in Croatia. So I want to reflect on what has been said. I completely agree with the previous speakers. And I just want to say that we are in Pugwash trying to revitalize what is called Track 2 diplomacy, but what Pugwash did since the beginning, because Pugwash was one of the first organizations in the mid 1950s, because Pugwash is a direct consequence of the Russell-Einstein Manifesto on trying on bringing scientific rationale and scientific expertise and knowledge to the discussions of these important problems. We have organized, as was mentioned, the conference in Hiroshima. It was the first conference, the international conference in many years, since our last conference in Astana in Kazakhstan. And in this conference, we gathered about 180 participants from 41 different countries. And there was also a conference of the young chapter of Pugwash, which is the ISYP, the International Student Young Pugwash. And they also brought together about 33 participants from 22 different countries. So this is great to see a big young participation, since it's fundamental to stimulate young scientists and young people who are interested in discussing peace and what to do to improve the current situation. So in this Pugwash conference that was held in Hiroshima, of course, to commemorate the 80th anniversary of the bombings and the 70th anniversary of the Russell Einstein Manifesto, and also of the 30th anniversary of the Nobel Peace Prize given to the Pugwash conferences together with our dear Joe Rodblat. The conference I was important opportunity to remember. It was held in Hiroshima, so this was really very moving to remember. We had the participations of Hibakusha, which are the survivors of the nuclear bombings, and so that in that sense, it was a unique setting to honor the Hibakusha, and also to engage, not to speak only about the past, but also to think about what steps to follow to try to foster, like was said, discussions, but mainly involve scientists also in the discussions of these important topics. There were, in addition to the plenaries, open and closed plenaries on different topics, we had 6 working groups on different topics, which were nuclear disarmament and the future of arms control, nuclear energy and non-proliferation, Asia Pacific and nuclear weapons, conflicts and WMD, weapons of mass destruction in the Middle East, European security, emerging technologies and their implications for conflict. We were pleased to see that we had the participation of different parties in conflicting regions. I won't mention them all, but we did have relevant Iranian participation, Israelis, Palestinians, Ukrainians, Russians, Europeans, the US, of course, and also participants of Northeast Asia. So seeing and having these groups where we have what we say in Pugwash, dialogue across divides, was fundamental to try to foster dialogue, which we think is one of the main problems, as was also said by my previous speaker. We really need to reinstate dialogue between conflicting parties. We see in the major problems we're facing, for example, in the war in Ukraine, there is no dialogue across formal dialogue and diplomatic dialogue. So, and this, at least from Pugwash, we want to try to bring in the track to discussions to see what can be done, because we are scientists, we want to solve problems, and the problems we are facing internationally are really threatening peace, and the situation is very worrying. I would like to read the declaration, the Hiroshima Declaration, because I think the Pugwash Council produced in Hiroshima. I think it summarizes the main spirit and ideas of what was discussed in Pugwash. So please allow me to read. It's not too long, but it has the main ideas I want to transmit to you. So the Hiroshima Declaration that was issued during the Pugwash conference in Hiroshima reads the following. 80 years after the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, humanity once again stands at a decisive moment. The world faces growing confrontation, the weakened road of diplomacy and the erosion of the norms that have restrained nuclear weapons use. The global order based on the UN Charter and international law is increasingly threatened. Nuclear-armed states are expanding and modernizing their arsenals. The risk of nuclear proliferation is higher, and the nuclear taboo is being violated by explicit threats of nuclear attacks. Recent conventional strikes on nuclear facilities are a clear violation of the commitment on prohibition attack or threats of attack on safeguarded nuclear facilities. The targeted killing of scientists and engineers further undermines international laws. The doomsday clock now stands at 89 symbolic seconds to midnight, its closest ever, a stark warning that nuclear dangers are intensifying. From Hiroshima, we affirm with conviction that nuclear weapons must never be used again under any circumstances, since a nuclear war could destroy not only nations, but the future of humanity itself. The bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki were not only tragedies of war, but represent enduring moral ruptures in the conscience of humankind. If such a future is to be averted, dialogue must replace confrontation. The Pugwash movement was founded on dialogue across divides, and history shows that even in times of deep hostility, such dialogue has made disarmament possible. As the 2010 New Strategic Arms Reduction New START Treaty nears expiration in 2026, renewed US-Russia engagement is essential and must extend to all nuclear armed states. Confidence-building measures, regional cooperation, and responsible management of emerging technologies must follow. The upcoming NPT and the TPNW review conferences offer crucial opportunities to restore trust and place disarmament back at the core of international security. And every effort has to be devoted to ensuring the entry into force of the CTBT. Nations must reaffirm and strengthen the principles and obligations of the Outer Space Treaty to prevent weaponization of the space environment. True peace cannot rest on the threat of annihilation posed by nuclear deterrence policies, which offer no real security. Eliminating reliance on nuclear weapons is both a moral duty and a strategic necessity. States should adopt no first-use policies, give unconditional negative security assurances to non-nuclear armed states, and strengthen frameworks of cooperative and common security. Initiatives such as the nuclear weapons-free zones show that disarmament is achievable through trust and cooperation. Scientists and scholars share a special responsibility to guide leaders with knowledge, scientific rationale, and ethical judgment. The scientific community must support the work of the TPNW Scientific Advisory Group and the UN Scientific Panel on the effects of nuclear war, and act decisively to address the destabilizing risks of new technologies like artificial intelligence and quantum and biotechnologies. In addition, civil society remains a moral force for peace. The noble recognized efforts of Pugwash, ICANN, TPNW, IPPNW, and Nihon Hidankyo demonstrate that citizens and scientists can awaken conscience and shape the future. Their message, echoing across generations, remains our compass. No more Hiroshimas, no more Nagasakis, no more war. Japan's constitution, Article 9, which renounces war and the use of force, echoes the 1955 Russell Einstein Manifesto's appeal to abolish war itself. Together, they stand as enduring beacons of conscience, affirming that true security lies not in arms and the use of violence, but in multilateralism, respect for the rule of law, justice, dialogue, and our shared humanity. So let the Pugwash Conference in Hiroshima 2025 be a turning point towards dialogue, disarmament, and lasting peace for humankind, guided by the unyielding call of the Russell Einstein Manifesto, remember your humanity and forget the rest. So with this, I would like to finish, since I don't want to be too long, but I think this reflects, summarizes the idea of the Pugwash conferences, and I hope we can continue working together with the Croatian Pugwash group, and also I would like to thank the World Academy of Arts and Sciences. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Karen Holberg, Vice President, the General Secretary of the Pugwash Conference, who reminded us and read us the declaration crafted in Hiroshima this year at the occasion of 63rd Pugwash Conference with the title 80 Years After the Atomic Bombing, Time for Peace, Dialogue and Nuclear Disarmament. I think we all received the positive message, although also formed upon reasonable concerns about the contemporary state of affairs in the world politics and society. Last but not least, I would like to invite Ms. Dalia Alic, chair of the Young Pugwash Croatia. Young Pugwash Croatia is the organization of young people, and it was established this year. Ms. Dalia Alic is going to present her vision of the future work of the Young Pugwash members using a short film and a few words on the recently held conference in Hiroshima. Ms. Alic, please. Oh, she is not here. Oh.
Thank you very much for these words. I believe we can start with statement and then followed by video. Dear ladies and gentlemen, distinguished colleagues, dear friends, both online and offline, as a member of International Student Young Pugwash community, it is my honor and great pleasure to announce the opening of the Student Young Pugwash chapter in Croatia. I am truly grateful to see our country join a global network that has been active since 1979 and now includes national groups across more than 10 countries. Guided by the Pugwash conferences in science and world affairs and their belief that young people can and should help shape global security, ISYP prepares a new generation to navigate the increasingly complex scientific and security challenges of our time. As previously and kindly mentioned by our dear Secretary General, this October, the ISYP conference took place in Hiroshima as part of the 63rd Pugwash International Conference. It brought together young professionals from 22 countries for action-oriented discussions on reducing nuclear and international security risks, as well as forecasting, exercises, and collaborative planning. It demonstrated, once again, how cross-cultural and early career dialogue can meaningfully contribute to global understanding. Our new SYP Croatia chapter will build on this legacy. It will offer young people across Croatia from all academic and professional backgrounds the opportunity to engage in international discussions, join working groups, participate in workshops, and collaborate with peers, experts, and policymakers worldwide. To students and young professionals in Croatia, we warmly invite you to join us. Your ideas, your motivation, your curiosity are essential. This chapter will be a space where science and policy meet together for negotiation exercises, simulations, dialogue, and shared learning. A space where you can grow, where we all can grow, contribute, and hopefully help shape a more secure future one day. Finally, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the ISYP team and to the Croatian Pugwash Society for their wonderful and crucial support in establishing this chapter. Thank you for your presence, your support, and your unwavering commitment to dialogue, especially now when it's needed the most. I warmly recommend we move now to the video, and I thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Dalia. We were all very impressed with your short film and with the initiative of Young Pugwash in Croatia. And I hope, and I'm very happy that so many young people are here today. Perhaps for the first time in their life, they hear about these initiatives, that it exists and that they can participate. They are warmly welcomed to present their ideas, thoughts, and to help us, the generation that is perhaps not so very much enthusiastic and fresh as they are, to help us to form the better future. We are at the end of our meeting today. I would like to ask whether there are any questions or comment on our Mr. Silobrčić, please.
Unfortunately, I would like to add another problem. The problem I see for the moment is this. We are expecting of science to give us answers. But to give us answers, science has to be able to present the truth. Unfortunately, the truth in science has been under attack. There is a book coming out in the States. It's called War on Science. It contains interviews with about 20 or 30 excellent scientists throughout the world, showing examples of something that is threatening really to every possible rule of science in any human endeavor. The examples show that some of the renowned international journals are not publishing some scientific discoveries because somebody somewhere may find that they contain something that is not acceptable to some groups in the world. So, in other words, we are losing some new discoveries because of the fact that we probably have to take some special care not to offend anyone with what we discover. That is all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Mr. Silobrčić, for these really valuable comments. You added, unfortunately, new threat to the list of today's threats to global community, which were already presented today, like global warming, nuclear threats, artificial intelligence, and these threats made to science. I think this deserves another conference. Perhaps Mr. Kožnjak in the Institute for Philosophy can organize something like that, or magazine, online magazine, Ideja HR. This is really a topic we should be aware of, and the topic we should also discuss and try to attack, not resolve, because it won't be easy to resolve these threats. At the end, I would like to thank once again to all the organizing team, to Pugwash Conference on Science and World Affairs, also Pugwash Croatia, of course, chapter of International Pugwash Conferences on Science and World Affairs, the World Academy of Art and Science, the Global Peace Offensive Center, the online magazine Ideja HR, the Independent Union of Research and Higher Education, who was so kind to offer us this space for holding this conference, and also the Office of the President of the Republic of Croatia, who sponsored, in a way, this event. Of course, I would like to thank you, dear audience, for your attention. I hope it was not too long and too dense. Perhaps it was, but now we'll have the opportunity to discuss these questions in a bit more relaxed atmosphere. At the end, I would like to invite Ms. Anna Jerkovic, a member of International Council of Pugwash Conferences on Science and World Affairs, as well as Associate Fellow of the World Academy of Art and Science. Anna is also Vice President of the Croatian Pugwash, and she will present us her closing remarks on this event. Thank you.
Thank you, and I will be very brief. So first of all, I would like to remind and emphasize the title of this event, which marks 4 important anniversaries, and which we chose as the overarching topic of this conference when mentioning the role of science, namely dialogue, respect, and dignity. Not only in science, but also in everyday life, we need to keep in mind these 3 key virtues when approaching, analyzing, communicating, and socializing. Without dialogue across divides, as it is the motto of Pugwash, without respect between opposite sides, without acting and speaking with dignity and treating others with dignity, there cannot be peace in this world. The transformation of this world starts with us, starts with recognizing our humanity, as stated in the Russell-Einstein Manifesto, recognizing what is human in the other fellow humans, in the other nation, in the opposite thinker, recognizing what is the motivation behind action, what is the cause behind the conflict, where is the root behind the visible issue, what did we miss? What did we neglect? Recognizing the importance of dialogue and accepting the solutions and compromises can only be found at the other side of dialogue. Recognizing that through the example of Joseph Rothblatt and Ivan Supek, we can learn what it means to take a responsible yet challenging path to keep the dignity of science. Last year, we marked 300 years of the birth of the philosopher Immanuel Kant, whose work, Perpetual Peace, showed us how peace is possible and achievable if we work together. Pugwash Conferences on Science and World Affairs, as well as the World Academy of Art and Science, 2 organizations whose work is profoundly dedicated to peace and security, to our shared humanity and rooted cosmopolitanism, can help us reach this goal. Our task is to remember the great scientists and humanists of the past, to keep their spirit alive through their messages, ideals, and philosophies. Our task is to remember all the people from the past and from today who suffered from our wrong decisions, all the victims of us forgetting our humanity, all the innocent suffering because of our blindness and ignorance. Our task is to fight for a better future by accepting lessons from the past, with acknowledging what is fundamental and universal for our well-being. Which are the ideals that inspire us to work harder, to think sharper, to feel deeper, to reach out wider, sharing one common goal, ensuring peace and a safe home to all people on this earth. Let us all think about our personal contributions to peace, not only at conferences like this, but every day in our communities, when we are faced with conflicts, misunderstandings, and different opinions, different cultures, different values. What is our motivation, our intention, our agenda? Is our thought constructive? Is our heart pure? And are our deeds driven by fear or gain or love or understanding? This is what the Global Peace Offensive is all about, learning from the past, improving ourselves by working together and inspiring one another, joining forces to make a difference. encouraging dialogue across divides, maintaining respect, and preserving the dignity of ourselves, as well as the dignity of our fellow humans. I would like to thank all who contributed to this conference, all the speakers, organizers, participants, and supporters. To conclude, if you have to take one thought from this event, one message, one wisdom to use when you think, feel, speak, and act, let it be our appeal as human beings to human beings. Remember your humanity and forget the rest. Thank you.